never expected to find something like this. Not in my own building. Not behind a door I had walked past so many times without thinking. A door that had always felt ordinary, unimportant, invisible. It was a normal place. Too normal. The kind of place you never question. The kind you trust simply because it has never given you a reason not to. At first, my mind refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. It felt unreal, like my thoughts were lagging behind reality, like my brain was trying to protect me by slowing everything down. The room was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your chest, that makes every breath feel heavier, that makes you feel like the air itself is holding its breath. I took one careful step forward, then another, and that's when my heart stopped, because suddenly, nothing felt ordinary anymore. Kale had always been quiet. Not cold, not distant, just careful. The kind of quiet that doesn't demand attention, that doesn't try to explain itself. He was the kind of person people rarely noticed, the kind who could stand in a room full of noise and still feel invisible. He blended into the background without trying, as if he had learned long ago that taking up space only made things harder. We didn't become close intentionally. There was no plan, no decision, no moment where either of us chose the other. Life simply placed us next to each other, again and again, until being strangers felt unnatural. Late nights in the hallway, short conversations by the mailbox, small nods that slowly turned into familiarity. Sometimes we talked about nothing important at all. Music, food, random thoughts that didn't matter. And sometimes we didn't talk. But that silence never felt uncomfortable. It felt safe. Safer than words. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. Or maybe I wasn't ready to. There were small things at first, things easy to ignore if you didn't look too closely. The way his hands shook when he held his keys, like unlocking a door required more courage than it should. The way loud footsteps in the hallway made him freeze, his body reacting before his mind had time to catch up. And then there was his eyes, the way they changed whenever I mentioned family. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper, something guarded. At the time, I told myself it was normal. Everyone carries something. Everyone hides pain. I wanted that explanation to be enough. But standing in that room, surrounded by photos, notes, and silent questions, that excuse stopped working. Because these weren't just signs anymore. They were answers. The walls were covered in lines. Red strings stretched from one point to another, connecting faces, places, and moments that didn't seem related at first. My eyes tried to follow them, but there were too many paths, too many connections. It felt like trying to read someone's thoughts out loud. My breathing became shallow. I had to remind myself to inhale and exhale. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't someone being interested in patterns or stories. This was planning. Careful, intentional, built over time. Each photo had a purpose. Each note had meaning. And then slowly, painfully, one realization settled deep in my chest. I wasn't just part of the room. I was right in the center of it. I didn't feel angry yet. I didn't feel fear either. I felt exposed, like my life had been opened and examined without my permission. I heard him behind me. Not footsteps, not movement, just a breath. Then I heard my name. Lyra. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't carry anger. It didn't carry threat. It sounded fragile. I stayed where I was, my back still turned, my body unsure of what would happen next. Please, let me explain. The words came out slowly, like he was afraid even speaking might break something. I could hear his hands moving, not toward me, but away. When I finally turned around, he had raised them slightly, as if surrendering. In his eyes, I didn't see violence. I didn't see control. I saw fear, real fear, the kind that comes from losing something once and being terrified of losing it again. He told me about his brother. Not all at once, not easily. His voice slowed, as if every word carried weight he had been holding for years. His brother was the kind of person who noticed pain others ignored, the kind who listened when no one else wanted to hear. He worked with people who had been hurt for a long time, people whose stories were uncomfortable, people whose suffering was easier to overlook. He asked questions no one liked, questions that made powerful people nervous. And one day, he didn't come home. There was no clear explanation, no justice, just silence. Cale stopped talking for a moment. I could see it in his face. This wasn't a memory he visited often. He didn't gather information to control anyone. He did it because he was afraid. Afraid that if he looked away again, someone else would disappear too. I wanted to be angry. The feeling rose in my chest suddenly, sharp and hot, like it was finally my turn to react. I wanted to tell him he had crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed by anyone, no matter how good their intentions were. I wanted to tell him that fear doesn't give permission, that care doesn't excuse control. But I didn't say any of it. I stayed where I was because something inside me felt tangled. No one had ever noticed my pain before. I couldn't let you suffer alone, he said. The words stayed in the air longer than they should have. They didn't rush toward me. They didn't demand a response. They simply existed. Those words didn't scare me. They didn't feel manipulative or dramatic. Instead, they broke something open inside my chest, something I had learned to keep tightly closed. For so long, I had believed my pain was invisible, something meant to be carried quietly, without witnesses. And yet, here it was, seen, acknowledged. Pain recognizes pain. It doesn't need explanations. It doesn't need proof. In that moment, I didn't see him as a stranger anymore. I didn't see him as a threat. I saw someone who understood the weight of watching people disappear. Someone who knew what it meant to be afraid of caring too much. And for the first time since I walked into that room, my fear softened. "But this ends here," I said. My voice shook as the words left my mouth, but it didn't break. For a moment, I wasn't even sure who I was speaking to, him or myself. "You don't get to decide my safety for me." The sentence felt heavy, necessary, like something that should have been said a long time ago. I wasn't angry when I said it. I wasn't shouting. I was steady. I needed him to understand that care without consent can still become harm, that even good intentions need limits. He didn't interrupt me. He didn't argue. He just listened. We sat there in silence. Not the kind that feels empty or awkward, but the kind that settles gently between two people who no longer feel the need to explain themselves. The room didn't feel heavy anymore. The air felt lighter, as if something unspoken had finally been released. We didn't look at each other much. There was no pressure to fill the space with words. Two people carrying too much history, too many unhealed moments, finally allowing everything to rest. I noticed my breathing slow down. My shoulders relaxed without me realizing it. For the first time since I had opened that door, I wasn't scanning the room for danger. I wasn't preparing myself to leave. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar settle quietly in my chest. Safety. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. And for that moment, it was enough.